So this is the second segment on how to be a better leader. And for this segment, really what I want to focus on is it being right doesn't matter. That's something that you really have to take to heart. You really have to understand what that means and to be able to keep on progressing as a leader. Just being right doesn't matter. Now some people who are married, they probably already understand what I'm saying. But in the business world, there is always more than one way to be able to accomplish your objective. There's no best practice, there are better practices. There are very few things in this world that there is only one possible way to do it correctly or successfully or to achieve the outcome that you want. There are many different paths to be able to get to where you're going. And as a leader, you really have to understand that. The reason that you have to understand that is it helps you keep your mind open to new ideas. It helps you dialogue and be able to consult with an open mind. Understanding that even though you do have a vast amount of experience, there are people who see things differently because of their upbringing, life experience, the jobs that they've worked before, or simply their personalities. So the first thing you need to understand is there's more than one right way to do something. And to give you an example, I was working on a project. I had a manager that worked for me that needed to deliver one portion of this project. And him and I were discussing different ways of going about doing it. I had a predetermined way in my mind that I wanted it to be done. And those who know me, I like frameworks. I like methodologies. I'm pretty keen on reporting things certain ways. A lot of those are personal preference, and some of those are because I consider them better practice. And in my younger years, I considered them the way that they were supposed to be done. It was the only right way. So with this gentleman that I was working with, we're sitting down and discussing how to be able to do something. And while I was trying to explain how I envisioned it to be accomplished, I started realizing there were significant gaps between how I wanted to go about executing it and how he wanted to go about executing it. Now I have to understand he is a manager that reports to me, but he is a manager. He's in charge of a team, and he does have to be held accountable to perform. And if I'm going to hold somebody accountable, I also must give them the liberty to have the input and do certain things their way, unless I understand or know that it's going to completely fail. In that case, you have to spend more time communicating. In this case, his idea wasn't a bad idea. It was just a different idea. So what I did is I spent time with him discussing how he wanted to do it. I wanted to learn the details of how he was doing it and why he was doing it. And just the details of how he was going to accomplish that goal. And really it was to educate myself more than anything. I wanted to understand what he was going to do. And then tie that into what I needed and how that was going to accomplish. Understand that it was going to work. So I didn't approach him thinking, I've been doing this for X amount of years. I have this one methodology that I've always used. It's always been successful. So you shall do this way or else. I approached it with the mentality of, I don't have to be right. I want to understand where he's at, what he's thinking, why he wants to do things a certain way, how that's going to accomplish the goal, and then be able to see if I can track that back into what I need accomplished. And if I can do those things, there's no real reason for me to force that person to do it my particular only way. And that's what I mean by being right doesn't matter. And you have to understand that enforcing your vision has consequences. So if you don't understand that being right doesn't matter, then you're more prone to trying to get your way. You are the only person who owns the truth. Dr. Phil calls them right fighters, and there's plenty of those in companies. But no good leader is a right fighter, because When you believe that you own the truth and you don't understand that being right doesn't matter, you start becoming conflicted. You're no longer approaching things with an intent of inquiry and understanding and discussion. You're looking at it more for debate and being controversial and enforcing the vision that you want to accomplish. And that has a significant negative impact on the people that work for you. In some circles, you can call that micromanagement. You can't think. You have to do things exactly the way that I tell you to do them. That has a negative effect on a team's productivity. You may look at it and go, well, I've got this perfect process and this perfect procedure, and this is the only way that he's going to be able to do this, and so then I'm going to be able to control everything. Yes, you will. You will also control the low amount of productivity that these people are going to be able to produce. And that's the thing that you have to keep in mind. Now, yes, there are certain tasks that are repetitive in nature, that there are certain ways you have to do it. There are certain things in engineering that have one way to go about doing it. But that doesn't mean that that applies to everything. That is the outlier. The vast majority of things you can accomplish in more than one way. And you have to really let that sink in so you are able to communicate. And that brings us to the next point, which is the importance of communication with the people in your team. You need to be able to discuss things with them openly and be able to share ideas and not try to fight about right and wrong, but discuss how they work. It's approaching it from a different standpoint, from a different mentality, from a different intention. I'm not just waiting for him to be done speaking so I can then tell him what to do. I am listening intently to what he's saying to then ask more questions to be able to fully understand. It's a different intent. It's a different focus when you come into speaking. And that will greatly increase your communication. And when people feel like you're listening to their ideas, it's amazing how well a dialogue can go and how much benefit you can get from that dialogue. And all that stems simply by you understanding that it doesn't matter. Being right doesn't matter. What really matters is being able to appropriately communicate with your team. That's what really matters. Being able to appropriately communicate with your team, being able to listen to them with an open mind, being able to inquire and see things through their eyes, and be able to see things that maybe you're not seeing. Because that's going to help your team perform better. It's going to help you grow as a person. It's going to help you grow as a leader. Most everybody that you run into will be able to give you something that would help you become better. But if you always approach things with being right really matters, then you shut down the discussion before it even started. You've created resentment instead of teamwork. You've created an environment where one person is always pitting against another. It's a competition of the best idea instead of a collaboration to be able to find a solution. So when you go into work tomorrow or after listening to this video, just understand that being right doesn't matter, because there is always more than one way for you to accomplish a goal. And enforcing your vision, essentially cramming your vision down someone's throat, has real consequences. It negatively affects the communication between your teams and creates an environment of conflict, which then reduces the productivity of your team. It also reduces their ability to trust you, which limits what you can accomplish. So when you go into a leadership role, you need to understand that being right doesn't matter. And it's absolutely amazing the things that you can accomplish and the things that you can do working together with your team, being able to grab all of their ideas, understand where they're coming from, and come up with the right solution, a solution that works for everybody, a solution that they believe in, that they've bought into, a solution that they've taken part of. They're going to execute it with love. They're going to execute it as if they cared about it, because it's part of their idea. They have been part of the solution. It's something that they actually care about. And being able to get your team members to care about what they're doing will help you accomplish great things in your projects. And that's part of being a leader. Being able to do that is when you get a different job somewhere else, and maybe you're in a higher leadership position, and you bring in certain people that you trust to come work with you. It will make them want to jump at the opportunity to continue to work with you, because they understand that it's an environment where, one, if you did what you said in the first part of the series, you are accountable for the team. They understand that you will be there and you will be accountable for the team that you're leading. They also understand that the team that they're in is a team that's going to work and it's going to collaborate. They're going to come up with the right solutions. They're going to care about their work. All of a sudden, 5 o'clock in the afternoon comes and they're not running for the door. They're staying a little bit late. They're putting in a little bit more effort. Things are coming out with a little bit higher quality because they care about what they're doing. They feel like they're being led by someone who cares about their opinions. They feel like they're being led by someone who is going to be accountable for what the team does. And that inspires them. That motivates them. And that gives them a reason to work besides just the paycheck that they're getting. So you do step one in the first video is holding yourself accountable for your team. And then the second step that you want to start implementing is understanding that being right doesn't matter. So now what you're doing is you're starting to foster a culture inside of your team. You're starting to slowly change their mentality. You're starting to grab maybe some people who leave at 5 o'clock running for their cars because they just want to get out of work because they're tired of doing their job, into someone who feels like they're making an impact, that their opinion matters, that they're doing something that matters, and that they're working for someone who actually listens to them, and somebody who is going to be responsible for what's being done. They're starting to trust you. And you're slowly creating this culture. And as this culture grows, the more and more things that you're going to be able to accomplish with this team, the more and more goals that you set out, you're going to be able to meet. You're going to be able to exceed these goals, because now you don't just have a guy who clocks in and clocks out and collects a paycheck. You're starting to amass a group of people who care about what they're doing. Some people say that 3 guys with conviction could take over the world. It's amazing what a small group of people with strong convictions that actually care what they can accomplish and what they can do. And being a leader is part of being a leader, is being able to create that environment, to be able to enable that to happen. So step one was to hold yourself accountable. Everybody that works for you, everybody in your team, everything that they do, you are ultimately responsible for that. And to truly understand that you are ultimately responsible for everything that goes on in your team. And the second step that you want to implement is understanding that being right doesn't matter, to be able to approach the conversations with a different intention, to be able to not have a competition of ideas, but to construct a solution with the people on your team, and start creating, taking the first steps to start creating the environment that you need for people to want to work for you, not just have to work for you. Giving them the opportunity to be able to care about what they're doing. What you're doing is you're establishing a culture. You're giving them a pathway to actually care about their work. So those are the first 2 steps. We're going to keep on going on with this series. And I hope that this helps you. Please leave any comments you have on the comment section. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.